Hello and welcome to the Comedian's Paradise. This is where I speak to comedians from across the comedy world. And today's guest is a comedy don that has conquered Chicago and New York. Her name is Victoria, like the former Queen of England, and Flynn is similar to the name of Meadows' boyfriend in The Sopranos. We have the brilliant Victoria Flynn.
Thank you. What a warm introduction. Yes, my middle name's Elizabeth too, also named after one of your monarchs. Um, I was born 3 months premature and was supposed to die, so my mother decided to name me after two strong women. And then my dirty Irish last name came and ruined it. So here
Oh,
we are.
sorry about that. So from your name, you're English and Irish, is that right?
Yep. I actually recently got my 23andMe results back, and I am 98% Irish heritage. Yay.
We
It's
might
a
be
slight
cousins, Victoria.
it's probably, I mean, Flynn, for those of us who aren't familiar with culture, Flynn is like Garcia in Irish. It's a very popular last name. So if you have any Flynns in your family, this is a strong possibility.
No, I'm a McCarthy, but maybe we are related or some way down the line.
Yeah,
Uh,
definitely.
but so, Victoria, I found out a bit about you. You did a psychology major. You work in tech. What brought you to the world of comedy? Was it to study comedians?
Kind of. When I was little, I kept asking my mom what makes people laugh. And I've always been a funny person since I was a child. And to make things a little dark, I learned as a kid, because I was bullied a lot, if you make kids laugh, they stop spitting on you. So that was one defense mechanism. And then coming from an abusive childhood, making one parent laugh means they don't hit you as much. So this was learned at an early age, the defense mechanism. And the impetus for me to begin taking comedy seriously as a career path was twofold. One, working in tech, you're constantly interrupted as a woman. And my biggest pet peeve would be sitting in a meeting, a boring meeting, and then I turn to my colleague, I'm like, hey, blah, blah, blah. Haha. He will repeat what I say louder and get a laugh. And I just can't stand for that. So I had to start telling my own jokes. And with lockdown, what happened is we all got to sit and twiddle our thumbs for a while, and I started making funny movies and sketches online. And my peers were reaching out to me, asking me to start doing it more intentionally because they found it entertaining. And I had the opportunity to have a lot of people encourage me to put myself out there, and it just kind of snowballed from there.
Okay, and what makes you fall in love with the comedy beast?
Oh man. There is a few things. One, helping people feel seen, letting people know they aren't alone. It's odd. After shows, I have a bit where I talk about how I'm the oldest of six children. And folks will come up to me after the show and they don't want to talk about my jokes, but they're like, "Oh, you're the oldest of six? That's so cool. I'm the youngest of five." I'm like, okay, like but something about that made them feel connected and they want to talk about that. And there's no greater feeling than having a room under your control and getting a give and take of laughter. And it's musical. It's wonderful. And there's no feeling quite like it.
And what we had a little bit of a chat on the podcast that you said you did a bit of improv before stand-up. What is it that you love about the stand-up game compared with the improv? Or do you still do both, or is it mostly stand?
Yes. Yes, I still do both. I would say that improv gets harder and harder to practice, I think, as you get older because you need other people to do it. There's a lot of bad stand-up, but there's even more bad improv out there. And both major institutions, Second City, have turned themselves into degree factories. They're really not places to foster genuine collaboration. It's more, we want your money. Second City, the school was purchased in 2020 by a private equity firm. So their goals are different than what they were originally And that has made it more difficult to find people who want to do improv. So that's one thing. What do I like more about stand up, though, is that you don't need other people to do it. All you need is a microphone, not even a microphone. All you need is three people listening to you, and you can just practice material and you get to talk about yourself. And part of my journey that I'm still working on is focusing on saying what I want instead of what I think is expected of me.
Ah,
And that, yeah. And that was a struggle for me initially, especially coming from like a corporate background. So when I first started stand up, I was giving like bullet point or rule of three, just a joke and then three bullet points, because that's what a PowerPoint slide looks like. And now, and also having to be competent or professional and getting to throw that out the window is such a gift and not get in trouble for it yet. But yeah, that's what I like about stand up is the freedom to say what you want and to focus purely on you.
and make fun of your boss.
Yes, that's another crazy thing is how you'd think that a lot of people's companies don't like that they do stand up or they try to keep it separate. But my boss loves it. And everyone I work with, whenever I'm in New York, 'cause the office is based in New York, they always want to come to my shows and they always keep sending me more stand-up clips of people they like. And it's actually a great sales tool because I have to get new clients all the time at events and they don't want to talk about software. They want to talk about comedy. They want me to tell them a dirty joke at a work thing.
Ha
And
ha ha.
yeah, that's honestly the best way to close deals. Well, a well-placed dick joke has done more for my career in
Really?
software.
Can I ask one instance without any names or any specifics, but what's been a funny situation where that has worked? That sounds brilliant.
Okay, I was at a networking dinner. It was just a one with one other person meeting here in Chicago. And this gentleman is older and he was sharing that he has a daughter close to my age and speaking freely about politics, which is also kind of nice. I'm very liberal. And he mentioned something about JD Vance and was expressing frustration. Are you familiar with the American polit? Do I have to give you context on who that is?
You're going to have to, I'm afraid. Sorry.
No worries. So JD Vance is going to be our vice president, unfortunately. And he said that immigrants were eating dogs and cats to order to fuel xenophobia here in the United States. And what I told him, I said, "Oh, we all speculate that this man might be gay. We also started a rumor that this man has sex with furniture. Yeah, it's all out there." But I said, "Oh, do we think perhaps that when he said the immigrants are eating cats, he heard that immigrants eat pussy and he just doesn't know what that means?" And that guy loved that. He tells me that joke every time I see him now, and he tells me how many people he told that to. And uh, yeah, it's pretty interesting that that is the this charming older gentleman loves that joke. And yeah, like I guess it's rapport building. I'll say that much.
When is he going to give you the writing credit and pay you each time he uses it?
Well, inadvertently, he does bring new business to my company, so it's pretty great.
Oh,
I
yeah,
do
no,
kind
that's
of
true. Yeah.
I get paid on it in an indirect way, so I'll take it.
So you're in the corporate world and you're with yeah. So stand up is a bit like your massage from a stressful day at work where everyone's all required to be proper and to be all. But do you occasionally get a bit with the people in there? Like, what's it like in the corporate world? Do you find sometimes people are so held up and tense that they can't be themselves, and you must have some stories about that.
Yes, I think okay, so keeping in mind that I didn't start stand up formally until like 2021, but I did a lot of improv and sketch and other comedy things before that. Lockdown 2020 was the breaking point, I think, where the veil kind of fell between corporate niceties and being a human being. because how can you be formal when you've got a naked 4-year-old running across your Zoom meeting all of a sudden? And then these kids are crying and there's a dog barking. And it doesn't matter if me raising my hands in a meeting is unprofessional all of a sudden because this guy has 6 kids pulling at him while he's delivering a, end of quarter report. So that kind of lowered everyone's guard and kind of reset the expectations of what's considered professional or not. Like I hear a lot more swearing on calls. Uh, I hear a lot more, fuck that, let's keep going to the next thing, or we don't have to do that anyways. And it's a lot more real and a lot less decorum. But it's tough because sometimes I have no filter sometimes, especially when it's Friday, the end of the week. I've been holding it in all week, and Friday is when I start swearing more. I got in trouble earlier at work, actually today before this meeting, because I had prepared a presentation with someone else to educate my company on a topic. And the individual was presenting and asked the question, and no one answered. Everyone's like hiding. And I scratched he said, "Oh, Victoria, you want to answer?" And I said, "No, actually, because I wrote the presentation and it won't benefit you guys if I answer this question. We did this for you." But that was too explicit. That me saying it that way what made people unhappy.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, which is unfortunate that you still have to communicate in a roundabout way.
Does the fact that people have to be so cautious in the court world of how everything you behave, does it make them more boring? No, I'm joking. Ha 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 ha.
Yeah, I mean, well, what is interesting is when I meet my colleagues or other people outside. So tomorrow, for example, I have to go to a big conference uh, run by a company called Salesforce in Chicago. And I'll be with people all day. And when I sense that someone's really boring, eventually I might find a way to work in that I do stand up. And if that completely changes their attitude towards me, that tells me that they're also putting on a mask.
Oh,
Like they're like, "Oh, that's so cool. Oh my God." And then they follow me for the rest of the day because they want to be around authentic people. Even if I keep my mouth shut and I go to these conferences and I stand in the back of the room and I'm watching someone present and it's a bullshit presentation where they're like synergy, pipeline, AI, and you're blowing smoke up people's asses. I'll end up getting someone that comes next to me and starts talking shit. And I don't know what it is about me that gives off the you can be yourself around me. But I try to signal in subtle ways when I'm out in the wild in corporate world. I'll wear a little bit of glitter, or maybe have a very bright lipstick or something that like a poisonous tree frog. It attracts or warns people that I will call you on your bullshit.
ha ha ha. And what about blue hair? No.
I used to have blue
Oh,
hair.
oh, okay.
Yeah, I used to work for a company that had blue in the name, and I had blue hair when I was in my early 20s, and then I got promoted to an external facing role, and I had just paid money I couldn't pay to undo the blue hair. And
Oh,
legally in the US, they can't tell you to change your appearance. Like
okay.
they can't say anything about it. So overnight, I bought like nice dresses and heels to try and compensate. And it looked kind of cool. I was like a cool anime character for a while. But unfortunately, the blue hair at conferences meant men would come up and hit on me because they think I was like a booth babe.
A booth babe.
Yeah, so at conferences, if they have booths, a lot of times companies will hire attractive women
Oh,
to
right, right, right,
showcase
right, right. Okay.
products.
Yeah.
So people would just approach me like I'm the entertainment instead of the person who you would like sign a contract with.
God.
Because yeah, uh, being a woman, am I right, Marvin?
Yeah, I get it all the time, Victoria. I mean, the most creepiest thing I've had is on Facebook, some random old guy in his 40s or 50s said he wanted to be my sugar daddy for some reason. I never met the person. I didn't even know who. He just added me as a friend and dropped me a message saying that they wanted me to be, he wanted me my sugar daddy. I don't know why.
Oh, okay. Did you do it? I mean, we're doing the podcast from the closet. Do you need a sugar daddy? Do we need a sound studio?
No, it's fine enough as it. I'm
Yeah.
not that desperate, but
Okay.
if I'm homeless, sticking a needle in, maybe. No, no, sorry, that's too much.
Funny. Well, look, you can borrow my face for the account if you need. All right. We can split some type of referral fee. Yeah. But if you need a girl face to go live your sugar baby dreams, I'll help you out.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks. But I mean I mean we're speaking of like the corporate world where everyone's all tensed up and they're all having to do this. In comedy, it's too far the other way at times, isn't it?
Yes, that's actually that's one of my biggest, I don't know if pet peeves is the right way, but creatives, comedians and creatives in general are not known for their executive functioning skills. Being able to reply quickly to a text or remember dates. I'm very organized. I'm a good producer. I keep track of things, and a lot of times finding other people who can at least carry a little bit of water in that regard can be difficult. And even being even so, let's say if you're trying to get submit to a show and they don't respond. In the world, when someone doesn't respond, at least in corporate world, you're supposed to nicely follow up until they tell you to fuck off. That's kind of the rule. Maybe you send 7 emails in a row over the course of like 2 months, and then you're like, all right, I'll back off. But you're not supposed to give up right away. Whereas here in comedy, it's a fine line because a lot of people don't know how to operate like a business or like someone that wants to make money. And they're, oh, I just want to do a show where I book my friends. And I would say that's
Oh,
also probably the biggest, I mean, comparing, contrasting Chicago and New York, there's a couple, but one is in New York, you can do business with someone you don't like if you're both organized and you can respect each other as creatives and as like partners. Here, being businesslike when I first moved back was met with a little bit of suspicion. And I think that's because of just the Midwest in general, people wanting to be in their comfort zones instead, and not forgetting that at the end of the day, this is an entertainment business. And having to just respond to emails, submit, like you have to treat yourself like an entity, like a brand. And that's doesn't come naturally to a lot of people. Self-advocating as well. I have some friends who were trying out for an audition in New York, and they'd been doing comedy for 8 years. And this he kept getting it's this audition called the Industry Room, and he kept getting rerouted to, oh, go to the open mic. We'll let you know when you're ready. And I'm like, you're definitely ready. What are you saying to this guy? And he told me like, oh, hey man, I'm like, no, no, no. Let me write you a little script of how you're going to talk about yourself next time. Like, my name is this. I've been doing this for 8 years. I've opened for this guy, and this guy. Here is my clip. Let me know. I'll follow up if I don't hear from you in a couple of weeks. And that got him the audition, but it was just the way that you have to present yourself sometimes feels gross, but you got to do it.
yeah. But
Yeah.
what's the point of where you? What would you say is the right balance of like being nice but not like you're because you see it in comedy, you see it in all entertainments of kissing the ass too much where it puts them off you.
Um, I think understanding what you have to offer in exchange helps keep you humble, is the first thing. So if you're asking someone for something, a spot, or maybe you want to collaborate with them and produce a show together or do a sketch together, you have to be aware of what you bring to the table. And that works both ways. One, know your worth, but two, what are they looking for? What does this person actually want? Do they want good comedians? Do they want a packed room? Do they want like what do they want, and try to offer that. And I think the ass kissing part too is understanding that you have power. If you don't like the way things are going, own the means of production. If you're
Yeah,
having trouble getting booked, start producing your own shows. If you make it big enough, they will come to you, and just be undeniable in that way.
yeah. Don't make excuses. Find your way
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah, or what I've done before, and this is something like I like about the New York scene. I can at least say, "Hey, I really like your show. What do you need to see from me to be on it? And they'll tell you, they might tell you honestly, hey, we're looking for people who are already headlining in the cities they came from. Do you have an hour of material? Do you have this? Like, maybe you're not there yet, but hit me up in 6 months. Here in Chicago, though, it's a little bit, and again, I grew up here, but folks are afraid to offend. They're afraid to give feedback. So in Midwestern culture is if you go to someone's house and you're at a barbecue, and you don't like the food, you're going to put the plate face side down in the garbage.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah, it's very oh yeah, we'll call you. I'm not going to call you. Like it's very people are afraid of confrontations, but for me, I can take constructive criticism. So I have asked people before like, "Hey, I really like your show. I'm going to come to it. Do you accept submissions? What do you need to see from people in order to for me to get on your show? And how can I respectfully remind you?" And just asking that takes so much pressure off people. And I know it's hard to take that first step, but just saying like, I want to be on your show. I'm going to be nice and keep asking you. And you can tell me why you don't want me on there. And that's okay. And I've had a few people do that to me when I was producing and I'll give good feedback or I'll just be honest, like, hey, here's the deal. I'm trying to have a diverse lineup and I have 20 white men and I need to space you guys out over the next few months because I can't have an all white dude lineup. I don't want that. I don't want an all dude lineup. So that's, yeah. But just at least being honest and acknowledging, hey, this sucks. I'm sorry. I'm one person. I'm only doing once a month right now. But like, let's work on this together.
Wh- What's your advice for getting the honesty from Midwesterners if they're not happy with something?
I think just not being aggressive and just leading with kindness and just, hey, I really admire your show. I love the format. I'd love to and ask for feedback, but ask for feedback with the goal of improving. And I think if you frame it that way, a lot of people they're not going to deny you that. Hey, do I need to improve to get on your show? Hey, do you have any suggestions for me as a veteran? Because then it's not quite ass kissing to get me on your show, but it's ass kissing the individual and asking for their professional advice and mentorship.
Yeah. How and what's been the recently? What's been a big stark? Let me rephrase that. What's been a bit of advice that you were surprised to receive and was a bit of a shock to you, maybe even a bit painful at the time, but you're like, you had a thought about it and you thought, you know what, they're right, and they made you a better comedian.
Ooh. Um, for me, this is a tough question because I feel like I receive such conflicting feedback sometimes. I'm told by most of, not even my peers, but people above me that I'm underselling myself because I started comedy, I started stand up later in life. So I'm trying to be deferential and work my way up in a pecking order. But I've been in entertainment for over 20 years. And that's a difficult line to walk. And I think it's the advice I received is to shamelessly promote myself. And if it feels cringy, just keep doing it. And that's painful in some ways. Another one was that the tape I used to submit made it look like I didn't have the ability to do a certain amount of time. Like I sent a 5 minute clip and a show told me, oh, we want people to do 10 minutes, which I have plenty of tapes of me doing 12 and 15, but I took that at face value and I spiraled and I thought, oh no, they, I don't look good enough to them. But it's a good tape. It has a very high laugh count, but I think that's also the Midwest versus the coast. So New York and LA, you send 3 minutes, five at the most. You don't send more than that. That's arrogant. But here, people are asking, hey, can you send me an 8 to 12 minute clip? But they don't always specify that. So it was assumed that when I sent my short clip that that was all I had. But instead of asking me, hey, do you have anything longer? They just said, oh, we don't think you've been doing this long enough. And I was initially hurt by that, but I realized, oh, part of this too is, I mean, if you actually wanted me to be on your show, you would have asked for longer tape. So just taking that and moving
Huh.
on. Like, if you really wanted me to be on there, you would have said, oh, do you have anything longer? but instead, only having that 5 minute tape I sent them gave them an easy out to deny me.
Oh, okay. But, I mean, it is a from the promoters and the bookers side. It isn't a pleasant thing to deal with comics when you have to say no or you have to get back to them because you don't know what you're gonna get back. Even with some of the gigs I run in London, sometimes I get a few iffy responses from acts, and it gets you a bit nervous. So you're a bit like you want to say this and that, but you're like, oh, so you're friends with them, and you're a bit,
Yeah. Yeah, or something like on my end, what I don't like running shows is, and it's usually always men, they'll just be like, "Hey, put me on your show." Like I haven't met. Who are you? Like I haven't met you. At least for me, maybe call me old school. I never like I don't show up to someone's house empty-handed. Like I always bring something. And so in that same like mentality, especially if I don't know you personally, they're like, "Hey, my name is Victoria Flynn. I'm a Chicago/New York based comedian, and I love your show. I'd like to come and see it first. Do you accept submissions? Do you offer comps if I come check out your show for free to show that I'm actually coming to your room and supporting it? Number one. Number two, do you accept submissions?" And that puts me above, I would like 85% of the people because I'm being polite and I'm giving them an out also.
yeah. And you said, and I thought it was quite interesting when you respond to and let me know if I'm all right about asking this question. Um, you got back, you sent me a Facebook message that said that when you go on Facebook, you get a lot of dodgy messages. Can I ask that question? If not, no
Yeah, of
worries.
course. No, of course. Please. Yeah, go for it.
So as a male comic, what what has made you as a female comic be very nervous and oh this
Oh,
I'm scared of asking this question, but what is it that makes what are some of the stupid things that you get, and how can other male comics be more aware of what they're doing and not come across as a bushman?
oh God. I mean, even yesterday. So as you were talking about Facebook messages, yeah, my Facebook DMs are trash. I can't sort through the filth in there. And it's a mixture of like comedians from around the US who no one we know, no one who's big or anything. But I just had some man from Massachusetts say like ask me multiple times to FaceTime. Well, first, hey, are you a comic? I'm like, yeah, sure. I figured we're in the same Facebook group of something. And then, do you want to team up? No, let's FaceTime. And I'm like, oh no, this seems like a bot. And just I have a lot of just randoms in my Facebook messages. I get a lot of unsolicited pictures at times.
Oh,
Yeah,
oh.
but what I've been taking to doing lately is when I will screenshot that picture and then I will go onto their Facebook page and find their aunties and their moms and their sisters. And then I will message them saying, "Your relative is mentally ill. I think you need to call an ambulance. They're sending pictures of their genitals to strangers and they might be being sex trafficked. You need to help them right now." And usually within about 20 minutes, they'll be like, "Why are you talking to my mom?" And I'm like, "Why are you sending a strange woman a picture of your junk?" Like,
Yeah. It,
yeah.
it's a reverse fuckery. Basically, you're
Yeah.
saying don't fuck with Victoria.
Yeah. And then it's like different regions. I have a lot of gentlemen from Saudi Arabia. So I'll be like, "This is haram. Like, you are not following your religion, sir. Like, you're breaking your laws."
So
Yeah.
one of the things that I find quite so I wonder so
Oh,
so
I do want to add one more thing. You did ask like what is something about like male
yeah,
comedians?
yeah.
Okay, so two things. Number one, booking us only in March isn't doing us a favor. March is International Women's Month. March is my busiest month for comedy. And you people will hit me up the day of, "Hey Victoria, can you do this show?" I'm like, "No, I have 25 shows this month and I am already traveling for my day job." Like, "No, I can't." And by the way, I'm free April, May, June, July, August, and then you don't hear from them. So that's one. Like having a big ladies showcase, only putting ladies on it in March, Stop it. Okay. Book us other months. That's number one. Number two, if you're a man running an all women's show, we are going to think you're creepy until you prove it otherwise.
Oh,
Yeah.
you know that,
There's,
yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's a bit like, well, this is something that happens in the UK circuit, and some comedians have made jokes of it. They say that the more a male comic pretends to be on the female side, the more creepy they often are.
yeah. It's tough because there's two, like, there's one show I partner with that is a male producer, and I think his intentions are pure. Like, but when I tell people I'm on this show, they're like, wait, why is he producing that and not a woman? To which I say, why, of course, I'm going to have a man do the heavy lifting of this.
Ah,
It's my, yeah, you do all this stuff. I'll show up and look pretty and I get to influence things. Uh, but I do think it's tough. I mean, another way to look at it is like me as a white woman, if I was producing shows that only had black people on it, people might be like, why are you doing this? Maybe you aim for something that's more diverse. That is like, that's at least what I try to do is make sure whatever I'm producing, if you hold the flyer out from far away, it looks like Chex Mix instead of Cocoa Puffs or Kix. Those are American cereals, so that doesn't make sense to you probably. Chex Mix is a snack that has all different shapes and colors. Cocoa Puffs is a brown
yeah,
cereal, and Kix is a white one.
yeah, okay, yeah. That's. You mentioned a lot of things there. I know that I had another guest on a podcast called Nico White, who's incredible, and I can't believe he did comedy at 14. But he said in some shows, he'll there'll be another black comic on the lineup, and they'll say that you can book us on. It'll be like a year before he sees another black comic on, and people would.
It's, you mean like
It's
having, they only have one token person per
yes, yes,
lineup?
yes, like forced diversity without
Yes.
actually, yeah, being proper. Yeah,
Yes, that is, I mean, I feel that way as a woman. Uh, Here too, like I just part of the show I traveled to do, it was in the festival, it was a variety show, but I was the only woman on the lineup. And especially too in smaller scenes, I know with Chicago, I've had someone like a friend of mine, she produces and she was starting a new show and I kind of helped her brainstorm the idea. And then she called me and said, hey, here's the deal. I'm not going to book you for this one. I'm so sorry. I already have a skinny blonde lady. So that's my slot is a skinny blonde lady. And there's probably like six of us in the scene. And we're like, okay, I got to rotate them through every month or so. And I mean, it's the same with trans comics and queer comics. Like you can book more than one of us. Like, oh, I know why you're here. I'm this today for the lineup. So it's tough. It's hard because how do you be an ally but not be performative?
it's. I mean, yeah, but yeah, I don't know what to say. And one of the things I want to say about it. So there's a big yellow Xmas show that's at the UK every year, which supports a lot of Southeast Asian comics. And the thing is, even though we're of the same race and the same look, and even though you may be in a lineup with another blonde lady and they're skinny, your style may be completely different. You've got different backgrounds. Your look will be slightly different. They may be a bit taller than you. They may be more, which I don't know. You're still different in the way you do your comedy. So it's still not the
Exactly.
same thing. I mean, if there's three or four in the lineup, then maybe it's a bit too much. But I think a couple or two or three, if they're completely different in terms of their character, their style, and their look, just because, I mean, it, yeah, I think people
No,
are scared of doing yeah, they're scared.
I totally agree. It is, yeah, and it is tough too because like I think as a woman, as much I don't talk about a lot of the stuff that a lot of my female peers talk about. I mean, when I started, my dating life was an absolute shit show. So I did have a lot of great material about dating in New York City. And I still have that, and those jokes apply, but like anyone could who's going through a relationship issue could tell those jokes. And now, like, I'm in a happy relationship, and so I don't talk about the, oh no, how do I find a man? Or men are, this, it's hard out
Yeah.
there. I talk a lot more about like social issues, gentrification, or the fact that my relationship is an interracial one, or the US government not funding veterans. Like, so yeah, my style is very different than a lot of people who might look like me.
If you did do the show of like four or five blonde comics, would it attract the right or wrong audience, do you think? What would you think?
So I think, how do I want to say this? I think it would probably attract a lot of the right audience for the wrong reasons, and that these
Ah.
people have wallet share.
Ah.
Yeah. And I know even so like doing roast battles, like I have some friends of mine in other cities who are like very attractive women, and they're like, Victoria, you got to come battle me because we'll get on that battle card right away. Everyone wants to see a cat fight. And that's just that, unfortunately. But I think of it kind of as, I guess that leg up is the price I pay for making 75 cents to to a man's dollar. Like, cool. If you're gonna underestimate me because of how I look and come to a show because of that, fine. All right. I'll take your money. Thank you.
Yeah. Do, now, do you, with the scenes as a whole, so you gig a lot in New York and Chicago, what would you said they're very different in that New Yorkers are quite straightforward. I agree 100% with that. I mean, I've mixed with people from the Midwest and people from New York. New York, I find they're very brutal, completely brutal. I find the East Coast to be quite brutal, and I think in some ways, yeah, I think it's great. Like you, I mean, if you're bombing at a gig in London, sometimes people will try and say a nice thing to you or this and that. But I noticed in New York, it's completely cold. They won't say anything to you. They don't necessarily say you're shit, but well, no, they will. But I mean, like other comics won't like try and support you. They'll leave you alone. But I noticed in the London circuit, sometimes they'll give you a bit of support, even though you've done terribly.
Yes, I mean, and yeah, in New York, you could walk out and say I bombed, and they'll be like, you know what? It happens to everyone. Like I bombed last week, or be like, yep, you did. Here's a cigarette. Like, Chicago, no, you did it. You did great. The crowd was weird. Yeah, I do think, I mean, the East Coast directness, it's a question of time. Don't waste my time. I got to go other places. Like, tell me now what's going on. That's one thing. But two, I think part of the difference between New York and Chicago comedically is that in New York, there is an abundance. There is so much opportunity. There's so much stage time to be had. You can get up 4 times in a night on a show. You're probably not getting paid for all of them, but you can go do 4 sets in a night. That's easy. Here in Chicago, though, unfortunately, there is a huge scarcity mindset, and that was shocking to me when I moved back here. Is the I heard someone just say last week, like, we're too available here because there's a limited amount of clubs and people start to fight for the same spots. And so instead of the idea that the pie is big enough for everyone, like for example, in New York, you see another skinny blonde lady. I'm like, oh, cool. We probably have very different comedy. But here, people might think, oh, that bitch, is she gonna steal my spots because token blonde lady's being filled now? And that's weird because that's not the attitude. I'm from the city. That's not the city kid attitude. It seems like it very much is a transplant who moved here attitude.
Ah, okay, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, because if I'm a city kid, I'm scrappy. Like I know how to make my own way. I know how to make my own opportunities. But I think a lot of people here in Chicago, for some, they moved here because this is the biggest city near where they grew up. But you stay here because you don't want to leave your comfort zone. Whereas eventually the headliners here leave. They either go to New York, LA, or even Austin now. And that's interesting too, because it creates a power vacuum of like mentorship. And I know that when COVID happened, this is what I've learned from talking to a lot of folks, is a lot of the people who were running the mics and running good independent shows and trying to bring up, younger comics and help them out, they left. They moved to the coasts or they retired. Like they're like, I can't perform. My wife has, is immunocompromised. And that created somewhat of a power vacuum that allowed people who weren't ready for the responsibility, not necessarily not talented, but who also aren't giving back to the community. And that's something I think is important. If you're in a position of power, you should be helping to build for those below you.
That's what you said there is a big thing I think with all performers and a lot of comedians. And this is a thing that I learned from there's a guy called Tom Fox that I interviewed on the podcast. He runs his own theatre companies and a clown. And he's successful. He pays his rent doing what he loves. But
That's
he's
awesome. That's the
what
dream.
the thing that he said, and you sort of mentioned it in this episode already, but in a different sort of way, is that he says whenever you're doing something, why should people care? And one of the things is about what you said with the community. A lot of people, when they're running comedy shows or you're doing gigs, they do it for themselves, but they're not thinking about the wider thing. So if you run a good gig, you do better thing. You bring more people to comedy in a positive light. Whilst if you run a terrible gig, you put people off comedy. But yeah, then people don't think about the bigger picture. Like if you're doing a comedy show, you're just doing. There's so many comedy shows, especially in London. Why should people give a shit? What's the meaning for it? What are you doing for this surrounding area? What are you doing for comedians? What are you doing for that? Yeah, if you focus on those things, I think those sort of things are more long-term success. Because if you're just doing a comedy show, what reason is them to go in and not watch Netflix?
Hmm. Exactly. That's so I yeah, two things about that. One, I run an open mic at a bar every Wednesday, and I specifically chose this location because there's a bunch of mics that go on around it, but some are early and some are late, but there's nothing in the middle. And
Okay.
there's nothing in the middle for people like it's called out by 10. It's from 8 to 10 and you got 25 spots and that's it. Like show up and we will get you out by 10. You're not here for 3 hours. You have kids, okay, go get home to them. Are you a teacher that has to wake up at like 4 in the morning? Okay, cool. Come here. You'll at least get a spot. But I would say like at least once a month, a new person tries comedy for the first time. Like someone in the audience, someone who's visiting the bar will feel confident and comfortable enough to try out comedy at the mic I run. And that to me, like I've had goosebumps talk about it. Like that makes me happy. I think that's part of why we're doing this. And then another thing, I used to produce a bar show in my neighborhood, which is Lincoln Park, Lakeview. It's a very white neighborhood. And my co-producer and I, she's also born and raised Chicago, and Tina Yukana, she's great. We were committed to making sure the lineup is very diverse. And so you have a lot of these kids who moved here from a small town that have never met someone that doesn't look like them, and they're getting to hear like they're getting to see their first black person, like they're getting
Ah,
to see perspectives of people, or they're seeing their first trans comedian and seeing perspectives from people that they didn't know before, and demystifying what they might have been taught to fear. And I think that that's super important as well.
yeah. I think that's what we said there. I think that's one of the biggest problems with a lot of comedy. Well, we are. You said comedy is a selfish art form.
Yeah.
Look at a lot of comedy shows and look at where a lot of us comedians do things. I mean, I remember I had a chat with a comic a while ago, about 2 months ago. I never met this comic before. Well, he knew that I run a show while I was straight away. He'd not met me. He's not having like a friendly chat. Normally, when you meet someone new, you have a chat with them, you try and be funny, you joke with them, you try and get to know them a bit. And then if you get on, you start finding out things about them, you ask questions. And then
Mhm.
maybe you get something that could be useful. But the thing is, this guy straight away, he didn't bother to do any of that. He just tried to see what he could get from it straight away. Boom, 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 boom. And it's a bit like, I don't know you yet, mate. And you're going straight away to try and get stuff from me. So straight away, I'm going, wait a second.
Yeah, that's entertainment. And that's also what I mean, that's kind of what I've heard about the LA scene a little bit too. I mean, that's LA in a nutshell. That's film. That's show business. It's like, how can you help me? Do you know anyone? Um, but that's why New York is so surprising starting out there because when I'd be in the back room of Greenwich Comedy Club and I have the same 5 minute guest spot as like major international headliners, and we're both neither of us are getting paid, and we're all rats drowning in the same ocean, but everyone's nice to you and helpful because of that.
Ah,
Yeah, that's what surprised me, given what people say about New York. Whereas here, when I first moved back to Chicago, my peers were very, oh, well, it took me a year to get my first spot here. And I'm like, yes, but I'm not new. Oh, well, but then people who were headliners here were giving me spots. So that I thought was interesting is there's this, I didn't see you suffer enough yet, so I don't know if you've earned it, which I think is it's an interesting mentality. And yeah, New York also, I owe my beginning of my career to like born and raised New Yorkers too. Men of color. I started out in black rooms. I started out being the token white person in my comedy. So I had to like very quickly learn to punch down on myself or understand how I look and what me being in the room means, but understanding too, okay, how can I give back? So, for example, some of the comics who helped me out when I first started was like, let me see, how are you, like, what is your artist statement? Oh my God, let me rewrite this for you. Let me give you my white lady business words to help you get yourself booked instead. And I think that that's part of it is if it's like a rock climbing, if you go up, the other person, you guys help each other up as you go up one by one, or that's how it should be instead of climbing on top of the people like crabs in a barrel.
but the thing with the crabs in the barrel thing, that requires less effort from people. That
That
well, no, that feel people feel that that's an easier thing to do. They don't. They feel that that's the easy option to do to get ahead.
and it might be easier, and that's the thing is, you know, that's showbiz. No, it's entertainment is a cutthroat industry, but I have my own personal code of integrity. And I think to a fault in the past, I've looked out for others. And part of my journey is learning how to look out just for myself. But if it takes me longer to get to something because I didn't screw anyone over, then I'm okay with that. But not everyone has that mentality. And so it's takes time to try to find people who are also your people in that regard.
Yeah, yeah. But
Do you
yeah,
believe in karma?
I I believe in if someone's not for me, I just keep my distance from them. And so what's my thought on that? Yeah, I'm not too sure if I believe in that. I believe in that once I've found out that someone isn't the right kind of person for me, or I don't trust them, or they're not all right, you stay over there. I'll move all sort of contact and all of that, and I'll stay over here. That's what I'll do. I'll just focus on what I'm doing and
And
focus on the right people around me. That's all that matters to me.
and yeah, that's the Chicago scene is smaller, so that's hard for me sometimes. If there's someone, oh no, I don't know if I like your values, but I'm running into you a lot. So how do I navigate that in a way?
Well, I will be polite and I'll say hello to them, but they don't get any access to me in any way. So
Smart.
like, you don't get access to me on social media. You don't get access to me on text or anything like that. Well, I mean, that's just me. I just don't want to deal with you. I'll say hello to you, but I'll keep my distance from you. Oh, sorry, mate. I got to go and talk to my friend over there. Oh, wait a minute. I've got to go and get a coffee somewhere. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what I'll do. That's what that's maybe it's quite brutal. It's not nice, and I let them know that I'm not all right with them, and it's not the smartest way to play the thing. But I'm not too fussed about. I think what I said before about my friend who says that he makes
Mhm.
his bill doing what he enjoys doing. That's what my aim is, to be
Got
fully.
it.
So rather than being famous, that's if you want to be famous, maybe you got to do something differently. But for me, that's what I'm focused on.
Got it. Okay, that makes Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. For me, I think it's and this too, like I said, I'm the oldest of six kids, so there is this mentality of I have to help out the I didn't have a lot of people to help me out in life initially, and so I want to make sure those who are younger or newer or less confident feel confident. And I mean, I'll say this much, even if again it's the long way instead of the shortcut, there are plenty of wonderful comics who are incredible who are doing the same for me, who are headliners, who are big names. And so I know it's my job to make sure I do the same for the ones below me.
Well, yeah, if you're all right to, they may help you out when you need them. So that's the thing.
Yeah, never you never know like who like that kid who's the open micer that's asking you for advice, like they might go viral in a couple months for something and surpass you all of a sudden and then they need an opener. But they'll remember you were nice to them and you're helping them with some of their jokes, so they might want to bring you on tour. Like you never know. And kindness kills nothing. Kindness costs nothing.
Yeah.
But there's kind and there's nice. Midwest can be nice, but they are not kind. New Yorkers are not nice, but they are kind.
What you said there is like when someone says someone's a good or bad. What's the version that they say? Isn't the stereotype they say that there's a good guy and there's a nice guy? Is that what you're
Yes,
saying there?
kind of. Yeah. So, in the Midwest, like I might say, "Oh, good morning," and then like, quick, I don't want him to take the same elevator as us. Like, let's, run away. Like, but to your face, I'm being nice. Whereas in New York, if you're on the subway and you have a stroller, some guy's going to be like, "Let go, I got this," like, and then leave. But there, that was kind. That wasn't nice. They didn't say hello. They didn't acknowledge you. But they saw a woman who has a giant stroller and are like, I'm gonna, that's what you do. You help this person.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I don't know. It's don't I mean don't it's about like wasting time or being authentic, I guess.
What what do you think makes New York more? Yeah, what do you think shaped the Midwest and what shaped the East Coast culture? Do you think?
Hmm. Um, I mean, oh goodness. Uh, like sociogeographically, the density of the different regions. But I think that for New York, again, everyone is suffering. Everyone is taking the same subway. Like everyone is paying the same amount of rent. You're all it's smelly. There's garbage everywhere. You're all like collectively suffering together. And but New York is always going to have people. New York has an endless supply of audience. There's always people. You have barkers in New York. Chicago, you don't have people barking. There's not enough like foot traffic in places. And so in that vein, because you have people barking, you can also the barrier to entry is lower because hey, you want a spot? Go bring me two people off the street and I'll let you do 5 minutes. Like that's there. Here, hey, you want a spot? Keep going to the open mics for a couple years and maybe you'll get booked.
But
Uh,
yeah,
yeah, that I mean, when I moved back here, a lot of people ask me, Victoria, how are you getting booked so much? Because I'm not like a headliner. I'm still new in my career. I was just like just showing up and being intentional. And also like I over in New York, like I learned to really focus on laugh count. And the style of New York comedy, you have a lot less time to do sets. You go 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 10 is a big deal, Um, but they are very into laugh count there at the clubs. They want 6 to 7 laughs a minute. So honing my set for that versus so if when I came here, my 5 minutes is going to have more laughs than someone else's 10. And that's helpful to one degree. And then here it's about storytelling. So there's
okay.
different styles. Like New York is going to be complaining. We're all complaining about the shithole that we're here. Everything smells like pee. It's New York. Ah. Chicago is more like, let me tell you about me. Let me tell you what I'm observing. Let me tell you about experiences we've had.
Ah, okay.
And Yeah, and like another friend of mine, he's established comedian, but he just moved. He has a great act where he's kind of like a motivational speaker a little bit,
Ah,
and he just moved here to Chicago because he needs more time. He needs 15 minutes, 20 minutes, hour. You can drive outside of the city and play clubs in the Midwest here and actually get paid well. You can get paid 300 a show to do a feature spot somewhere in Iowa. Like don't get that in New York. Like you Chicago, you can still get paid a little bit. New York, you're not getting paid for anything.
yeah, I have heard. Yeah, it is. Well, you pay everyone else in New York. You pay for the gigs in New York.
Yeah, or I heard in LA you actually get I've heard some horror stories of friends of mine going out there like, "Oh yeah, you want to go up, it'll be 250." Like, what the fuck? Like, because that's the cost of 5 tickets with drinks. That's what you'd be making the house.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Well, I've so the things that I like about the so I've been to the Comedy Cellar and I've been to the Comedy Store in LA and I've been to the Comedy Store in the UK and big clubs. The thing that I like about the UK clubs is that you pay your ticket and if you want to buy something, you go to the bar and you do it. You do it at the break. The thing that
Mm.
I don't like about the American scene in the big clubs is, yeah, I don't like in this Comedy Cellar. Well, the thing that I didn't like was the whole, and with the Comedy Store is that, yeah, buying the drink as well as the ticket. I mean that,
So, yeah, so let me tell you, I mean, I bartended a lot. I'm in entertainment. Let me share some numbers breakdown for you. So, Second City, you're familiar with Second City? The tickets are the thing that makes them the least money. What
oh
makes
yeah,
second, what tickets make the bar and the food
oh I
are
agree, yeah.
make more than that. And I think it's tough too, and especially with TikTok and with Netflix and with all of this content now that we're overloaded with, what they have to figure out a way to make money. You can only charge so much. I mean, there's some so Zanies, for example. Zanies would be Chicago's Comedy Cellar. That's our highest level club here. Zanies tickets like $20 to $30 depending on the show. Sometimes if it's big one, there might be more. But there was a bar show I was producing with someone, and they wanted to charge $35 a ticket for a bar in the middle of nowhere. And I do think COVID has hit people really hard because we just don't have volume as much. And a lot of businesses, the PPE loans ran out, especially right around now. So there's a lot of restaurants and venues that are trying to dig themselves out of a financial hole.
Yeah, it's yeah, 100%. That's in a lot of comedy clubs that they get all their money from that. But I just found that interesting the way, and this was before COVID. I just found it interesting the way they're both set up and how they run. I just found it
Do,
interesting. That's all.
do you think that's also a reflection of UK drinking culture that if they forced you guys to have 2 extra drinks, it would cause a bar fight or something?
I don't.
You don't
I
know.
think it's as it's so ingrained for things to be a certain way.
Mhm.
I couldn't think of it. I just like it because it's simpler and it gets to.
Yeah.
That's all.
No, it makes sense. I guess, yeah, for me, the reason why, like at an open mic, um, everyone please support the bar because it costs them money. Like the bar is not making money on the open mic, and to pay that for that human being's time, it needs to be like a couple $100 to keep the lights on. So that's all. It's tough. It's a really tough catch 22.
I'm very well. There's. I think it's more maybe of maybe it's more of yeah. We'll probably have to look more into what's. I think it's also a culture thing. I think
Yes.
what I found in the US is completely. I feel without a doubt is completely capitalist. Like there's no ifs or buts. No. Whilst in the UK there is a bit of it is a capitalist, but there's a bit of so in the comedy circuit we there's a lot of distaste towards bringer gigs or to pay what you want things. Whilst in America, I feel that it's accepted. This is the way it is. Tough luck, kid.
Yeah, yes, very much so. Yeah, and that is capitalism. The idea that you can technically make unlimited amounts of money and you won't get taxed. You won't get penalized for making more money. In Europe, on the other hand, you reach a certain threshold, you have to start paying more in taxes. So there is almost an incentive to not get to not be too successful.
Well, and it they just then they just bank in Rwanda. No, not Rwanda. Or they bank in what was that place in Prison Break that they all want? Panama. You just said
Yes,
you just bank in
tax
Panama.
havens. Hmm.
I don't know.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, to any comedian that's listening right now, what is one bit of advice you'd like to give him? And should they gig in Chicago or New York?
Oh, it depends so much. What advice? It depends what you're trying to accomplish. So if you want to get volume and repetition, like lots of shows, and just get used to getting on stage, go to New York. Um, Start there. That might be the opposite. A lot of people say starting out in New York is really hard, but for me, I'm fearless. I'm very extroverted. I have no problem asking for things, so that was great for me. But Chicago is where you go to find yourself. Chicago is where you go to find your voice. This is one of the, it's considered a great incubator for comedy. So many of the greats on Saturday Night Live started out here, started at Second City. My, let's see, my advice to comedians is be curious. We don't listen enough. Ask people around you what they care about. Think about at the end of the day, you're providing entertainment. What does your audience care about at the end of the day? And what do they want to feel when they go home to a show, go home from a show? Because you're providing a service. If you're so like if you're hosting, don't go do 12 minutes up top and not acknowledge your audience. You still providing you're providing a service.
And following what you said there, who are the unsung comedy, like comedy producers in both scenes?
Ooh,
And
okay.
who are comedians that you really admire that
Okay.
you're performing with?
Okay. Uh, Producers
One second, I
in,
got a cramp in my leg. I don't know
go
what
ahead.
happened. Sorry, I'm really sorry.
That's okay.
Shit. What happened down here? Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, so unsung heroes of the comedy scene in we'll start with New York. New York, I love Brad Rickert. He's Jay and I know met introduced them to each other. Brad is a great producer. He runs a lot of shows, and what he also works hard to do is give new comics a chance, have a diverse lineup, and he also hangs out after the show or tries to if he's not doing something else. Hey guys, if you're free, let's all have a beer because that's not New York thing. After the show, everyone's going to the other show. They're all gone. Everyone's gone. Everyone's gone to do their own thing. So Brad Rickert's great. Skip Howard is another great guy, and he is one of the people who gave me my first feature spot in Brooklyn, and he is always helping out others and is works with a lot of folks who did Made in New York, which is a community organization that focuses on getting disadvantaged youth access to film production, training, and gigs. So he's very community focused as well. Then in Chicago, there are Dan Garcia is a great producer. I don't know how he does it. He also works in tech and has a full-time job, but he's producing like 8 shows. And then I really admire Tina Ukana, my co-producer. She runs really great shows and is very professional and born and raised Chicagoan. You should definitely have her on this podcast. And Courtney Albers as well. Great producer, great host. They bring a level of professionalism to the scene that is refreshing to some degree because everyone who is really professional eventually leaves. So they're helping to keep that standard. and they produce a great room.
Okay. And for anyone else that's listening to podcasts, how do they find out about you?
How did you find out about me? You can follow me on Instagram at Shy City Bitty. That's ChiCitybitty. You can also look me up on Facebook at Victoria Flynn. No dick pics, please, or I will find your mother. And I'll be redoing and rebranding my YouTube channel and stuff over the winter holidays. So I'll be launching that sometime in January with a website and tour dates and other media. So I'll be posting on Facebook and Instagram about that in the new year.
Okay. Guys, I hope you've enjoyed Victoria. We've got a great bunch of episodes coming up. We've got an episode with brilliant Sarah Louise Young. She's a cabaret performer who conquers the Edinburgh Fringe. She's always getting packed audiences. And then we're going to end the year with a good friend of mine who's a clown on the circuit. So I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you guys soon.